So, this video is going to talk about a subject matter that I love. I love fighting games. I've loved them. I mean, I'm from the beat 'em up era. I'm from the era where fighting games was a beat 'em up genre, and the game that was pioneering that genre, and the trend at the time was Double Dragon. So, but that wasn't the first game I played. The first game I played, well, okay, Kung Fu Master, but really Final Fight. Final Fight was like my first love of a fighting game, and I did not know that that was gonna generate into a love for Capcom until many years later when I started to really understand Capcom as a brand, and what they was doing, revolutionizing arcade games. You know what I mean? But I'm from the beat 'em ups. So within the beat 'em up genre, a game called Street Fighter 2 was released, and of course it's a sequel to Street Fighter 1. But I told you, Final Fight was where I started. So didn't know the connection until years later, till Street Fighter Alpha. But I digress. Love fighting games. Street Fighter 2 took me on a journey that, is beyond belief. And it's just very interesting how I've seen the genre grow. How like 2-on-2 fighting became a genre in itself and has just contributed massively to the industry. And then there's been times when it hasn't. There was a dark age in fighting games, yes, through the 2000s. I'm telling you, the 2000s was a rough time. Last video I talked about how the 2000s was a rough time for people that were into comics. And, I could talk about fighting games too. What's interesting is that in comics and with fighting games through the 2000s, the one game that was keeping both them genres alive to a degree was Marvel vs. Capcom 2. That was what was keeping both of them genres having a really solid mainstream fan base, was Marvel vs. Capcom 2. You know what I mean? And, a big reason why is because it had very popular characters. And another reason why is because it was very simple to get into, hard to master, of course, when you see the greats play it. But for the most part, you could put that on and everybody has fun. Anybody can pick a character that they're going to love, especially if they love fighting games and comic books. But it was a dark age for fighting games. You could say that the genre was dead. Except for Tekken and Mortal Kombat. They have been making money all since their existence. They have been probably the most consistently highest selling fighting game franchises is probably like Mortal Kombat and Tekken. But the whole genre is dead. And within that time of death, there is a game that existed that people talk about and they revere so much now that back then no one was messing with. And that's Street Fighter 3. Nobody was messing with that game. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because I'm responding to a video that a guy called Normal Guy Phil put up, and he's talking about dead fighting games. And for me personally, the truth of the matter when it comes to fighting games, listen, no fighting game is dead because no fighting game is alive. They're games. They're inanimate objects until you pick them up and play them. With board games, it's just an accessory of parts until you play them. Then it becomes a game. With video games, they are just programs that are off until you turn them on. And when you turn them on, you have the fun. You play them to your heart's content. You are the life and soul of the game. And when you're playing it, you're the one that can play it and love it. You do not... all games are supposed to be playable on their own. All games playable on their own. Even like listen, all games, even if you're just thinking up ways of being smarter at a game on your own, you should be able to, you know what I mean? You see grandmasters of chess that play chess by themselves. They'll have a board at home and they're playing the game by themselves. It's because they're looking at all sides of the board. You know what I mean? So a one player in a game and in fighting games should be, you know, enough that you should be able to play the game and be like, yeah, you should be able to identify if it's a good game or not. You shouldn't have to look online and be like, oh, well, nobody's playing it online, so I guess that means it's no good anymore. It's no good to anybody. But you bought the game. I mean, normal guy Phil, he bought Jump Force, yeah. Like, it sounded like he bought it like a year and a half after it came out. He said, I bought it because, you know, copies were scarce. And then he didn't play it. It's like, yo, bruv, why are you buying a game that you have, like, clearly you had no intention of playing the game. Because you bought the game and then that night it sat on your shelf. And then you've never played it. So why did you buy it? Like, did you buy it because you love, like, Shonen Jump? Buy like the DVDs and the Blu-rays or the books or something. Like, buy a format of which you were interested in. Like, nobody was talking good about Shonen Jump Force. They all said the graphics look mediocre. Buy a Dragon Ball Z game. Buy the latest Dragon Ball Z game, because the graphics in Jump Force are bogus. The mechanics bogus. It's all just dumb down. So why'd you get it? And then it's just sat on your shelf, and then you're like, I wasted my money. I'm blaming the game or something. I don't know what you was trying to do. Like, I don't get it with this whole concept of, like, buy games you want to play. Buy the games you want to play. So he's talking about dev fighting games. The first fighting game he talks about is DNF Duel. DNF Duel is a good game, right? But what happened with DNF Duel is that it wasn't used for the purpose it was made for. That's why it's a dead game. There were people that looked at that game like it was supposed to be the next competitive fighting game on the market. And the truth of the matter is that game was never developed for that purpose. That game was developed for people who complain about inputs. So there was a time when there were games that existed, right, like Fantasy Strike. These games existed for people find inputs annoying. People like Hello TK. Remember when Hello TK, that yeah, idiot boy. Remember when that guy made that video about like GG Strive inputs? It was like, basically he said, look, inputs are obsolete. You know what I mean? These complicated half circle inputs, like, they're just obsolete. We don't need games to have these inputs no more. Simplify everything, right? So DNF Duel was that game. It had sick graphics, it had decent looking characters, it had dynamic gameplay, and it had simple inputs all across the board. Now, that game was not designed for tournament play. That game was designed to get people who have a slight interest in fighting games, but just the barrier of entries is too high. Put them on this game. It was for experts to group up beginners and put them on this game, and then from there teach them the basics, strategies of fighting games. Just be like, yo, these are the basic strategies. So you have the grappler, you have, you know, the zoning, you have people who expert long range, you have people that work the middle ground. You know, this is the basic of footsies, this is the basics of juggling, this is the basics of throwing, blocking, throwing, this is the basic of how a meter bar works, this is the basis of EX moves, near death 30% left, you know, Hail Mary move. Like, you could easily simplify and talk about the mechanics because you don't have to talk about inputs. That's what DNF Duel was for. It was not used in that way, so now nobody plays the game because experts need more of a challenge and beginners it didn't have nothing to attach to it. It wasn't a brand. If it was a brand, if that was like a Naruto game, it would have probably done more because it would have had Naruto fans that bought the game, and then it's got a simple input, and then that's how you gravitate people, like just off the casual. That game was an indie game based off an indie RPG fighting game. It was obscure to the max. If you thought that Guilty Gear Strive was obscure, you ain't got nothing on DNF Duel. So that's why it didn't work. Do you know what I mean? But it also proved the point. What that guy Hallo was saying about simple inputs, dead issue. That issue is dead. You want to talk about dead fight? Let's talk about dead complaints. That complaint is dead. All of them games that had simplified inputs, Phil talks about Blaze Blue cross tag battle, simplified inputs, and you know what? It's the thing that he hates about the game, that it was simplified. All that fighting, no one wants Hadouken's too hard and all that kind of stuff. Tekken's got, look at that. Tekken 7 by Tekken 7 people that wanted to get into Tekken 7 looked at the move list and said it was too much. Now look at Tekken 8. Look at how many people are gravitating towards getting Tekken 8. Look at the mass that is coming in. So that whole simplified input issue, that's done now. Dead fighting games. Fighting games, listen, fighting games, yeah. Any fighting game that is made can be made to have a cult following after its commercial lifespan. These games can still rock on. As long as you've got a way to play it, it can be played. You can put people on and it can still get played. Def Jam Fight for New York. How many videos are coming out? People are talking about, yo, this game was so sick. How many people doing story modes? We're 5 generations later of the format it was on. And you all know for a fact that if they re-release Fight for New York, it would do 1 million units. You know that it would. If they put, because I'm sure that was EA, right? If they did an EA package, right, and they had NBA Street Volume 2, any of the NFL Blitzes, and Def Jam Fight for New York on a package to be released today on these formats, you know it'd do numbers. Good games never die. Good games never die. Right? And I'm going to give you the prime example of a dead game that is thriving to the max. This guy made this. Phil, you made the thing about dead games and you never mentioned Street Fighter 3 once. You never mentioned Street Fighter 3. Street Fighter 3, okay, is a game that was dead on arrival. You see, in the 90s going into the 2000s, you didn't have this online presence that determined who was doing what, who was playing what franchise was the lick, what franchise was not. What you had was successful games and unsuccessful games. You had games that did the numbers and games that did not do the numbers. That determined what you was dealing with. That's what you determined what you was dealing with. When it came to Third Strike, but look, let's talk about Street Fighter, because this is the thing. A lot of people talk about Third Strike is the greatest game ever made, but they don't talk about Street Fighter 3, the first, or Double Impact. Real fans of Street Fighter 3 tell you Double Impact is the best. Real fans of Street Fighter 3. Double Impact is the best. That's what they tell you. They don't talk about Third Strike like that. They talk about the first game. The reason why they talk about Third Strike is Chun-Li. And then, of course, aside from the main reason, Evo Moment 37. That's why people talk about Third Strike so much. Nobody only the purists. Like, nobody was buying that game. I've got people, listen, I have people that I show people Street Fighter 4, I showed them Street Fighter 5, I showed them Street Fighter 6, and they all say the same question. Yo, when was there even a Street Fighter 3? Do you know why they don't know when Street Fighter 3 existed? Because we was all playing Marvel vs. Capcom. We was all playing X-Men vs. Street Fighter. We was all playing Tekken 3. We was all playing Mortal Kombat Trilogy. We was all playing Power Stone. We was all playing... we was all playing Killer Instinct 2. We was all playing a plethora of sick fighting games with popular characters that people gravitated to. We did not care about no Makoto. We didn't care about no Remy. We didn't care about no 12. We didn't care about no Q. We didn't care about no Dudley. You know when Dudley became a name? Street Fighter 4. You know when Ibuki became a name? Street Fighter 4. Crimson Viper is more popular than any of them Street Fighter characters. Even now when people play Third Strike, nobody, like, you ever see a Necro cosplay? You ever see a Necro cosplay? No one messes with that game. Listen. So Street Fighter 2, up until this day, yeah, has sold 23 million units. Street Fighter 2 is still doing numbers. When it came out, the arcade sold 60,000 units of Street Fighter World Warrior. And then Street Fighter Champion Edition did 160,000 arcade units, yeah. Street Fighter 3, when it came out, the arcade version sold 10,000 units. They sold 10,000 units of Street Fighter 3. 10,000 units of Street Fighter 3. Over 160,000 units of Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 3 was the dark ages. It is the dead game. It is the black sheep. It has always been the dead one. But when they talk about dead games, nobody talks about Street Fighter 3 as an example of a dead game that, as long as it has people that love the game, it can be made into something that people will enjoy for years to come, as long as it's got people that play it. If you love a game, play it. You build the community for it. You build the attention for it. Don't look at online to whatever. Listen, don't look online, nothing. Stop looking to the left and the right of you of whatever anybody else is doing. If you love a game, play it. I've never played a GTA game ever in my life. But you know what I play all the time? Sleeping Dogs. But back to Street Fighter 3. 10,000 units sold. Do you know that Street Fighter 1 sold approximately 50,000 units, arcade units? Street Fighter 1, the deadest of the crappiest Street Fighter, sold 50,000 units. The crappiest one. Street Fighter 1 sold 50,000 units. But Street Fighter 3 sold 10. Third Strike sold 80,000 copies on the Dreamcast. No, it didn't. It sold 100,000. Double Impact sold 80. So that's a total of 200,000, like 200,000 sales. Street Fighter 4 sold 9 million copies. Street Fighter 5 sold 7 million copies. Street Fighter 3 is at Street Fighter 6 is at 3 million copies. First year, 3 million copies. This isn't about looking to the left and looking to the right of you to see the games you love. Play the games you love. Everybody else right now is playing Tekken 8. Everyone right now. I'm playing Under Night 2. I love that game. I love Under Night. So I'm playing Under Night 2 right now. If I had a PlayStation 5, I'd be playing Under Night over Tekken 8. I'd be playing Under Night. Because I know that Tekken is going to do such Tekken's around. Tekken's around. I don't need to rush to get Tekken. Tekken's around. I don't need to rush to get that. But first day, Under Night 2. Because that's the game I love. So yeah, so I made this video to basically say this. Dead fighting games, no. You play the games you like. Invest money in the games that you want to play, that you like. You got people that come around, show them the game, let them get a taste. There ain't been a single person that I've shown Under Night that has been like, what is this? Like, I've got a good track record of putting people onto Under Night. Got a good track record of it. And simple inputs, we ain't talking about that no more. Because like Mortal Kombat right now is losing fans. Losing fans. They're all playing the game that is the most technologically advanced. People look at the movesets and turn it off and say, nope, nothing to do. Everybody's on that game right now. Play the games you love, man. That's all it is to it. Don't look online to these. No one's playing it. Invest your money in where it's gonna count.